At this time, I want to give the mayor and each council member a chance to speak about the killing of George Floyd. Whenever a citizen loses their life while in the custody of those we trust to protect us, we're all diminished. We all mourn the needless loss of life. There have been calls for justice, and rightly so. I think it says a lot about Red Wing that our protests have been peaceful. It gives me great hope that we can heal and work together to build a more just society. I'm committed to ensuring that Red Wing is a place where everyone can pursue their lives without fear. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, President Hove. Most of my remarks will be contained in the 7A Statement of the Council. So when I read that, it's a statement I've been working on for over a week and stuff that I would like the council to endorse and participate in. So that my chance will come then, but I just wanted to state my hope that I'm hoping that this period that we're going through is really a tipping point for justice and equity in the United States as well as Minnesota and Red Wing, that we won't have to go through this one more time in 10 more years or 5 more years or 2 more years, that this is truly the tipping point where we will achieve justice and equity going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Evan?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think protests across the country, the world, and even here in Red Wing have been a real wake-up call, and that no longer can we allow the systemic racism and injustice to just fester and continue. We have to have accountability. There must be justice. There must be acknowledgement of what happened. We have to acknowledge that George Floyd was murdered. He's one life in a long line that really feels endless, and it has to end here. So I hear residents, and I want to stand with them to want a Red Wing in a country where all our residents can live without fear of the institutions. And I mean all institutions meant effective. That all residents deserve justice and accountability, and that all residents have a voice in their government. And why I think we've made some starts to addressing systemic racism in our local policies and through our local departments. It's clear we still have a long way to go. And I would say that we have to recognize that change is coming. And partially because of our proximity to where all this started. And we will be part of the change. And just to close, I just want to say when Black Lives Matter, or when Black lives and Indigenous people's lives and the lives of people of color matter in our systems, all our systems, then we can all say that all lives matter.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Becky?
The obvious statement to start off with is what happened to George Floyd is unacceptable. And I think that we need to come together as a community to prevent those sorts of tragedies from happening again. And I think that that means that we need to stop and take a look at the relationships that we're building and how do we work with each other. And relationships take work and a lot of ongoing work. And we have to dig deep sometimes in those relationships when they're flawed or when they're injured or damaged or hurt. And this is that moment. And I think, Evan, you sort of alluded to that as well, that this really, the protests bring to light some of the damage that people in our communities have suffered for a long time. We must look for the systems and the often subtle systems of injustice and oppression that affects our residents, our community. This moment helps us pause in this moment to look at those and to reflect and to see what we need to do, but what we need to do and where we need to work. So my role, I feel like right now, my focus is to listen, to learn more, and to grow. Because I truly do believe in Maya Angelou's words that when we know better, we do better. And that's where we need to go.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Aaron?
I think, I know I agree with a lot of the things that everyone has already said. I don't want to be just another talking head I want to make sure that I focus on listening and learning. I attended our local protest this last weekend and the weekend before, and I know our mission statement says that we're striving to create a community that's equitable where every person feels at home. It's obvious that we have a lot of work to do in that, and I'm committed to doing that work as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron? Okay, Kim?
I admit for the last few days I've struggled to know what to say, what should be said, or what could be done. I grew up in Hastings where my parents rented out a house next to us, and one time they rented it to a black family, and I watched and heard the neighbors' comments to my parents as to why they rented to this family until the family left. I also experienced my doctor, who was retiring, bringing a black doctor to take over his practice. My parents took us to see the new doctor, and we liked him, but others in our community didn't because he was black. And we're not nice to his family, and because he couldn't make a living, they left. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act." Here are some points I think I need to look at, and maybe others. To embrace the pain. True change must begin in us. Reach out to our friends of color and culture. Care for the hurting and comfort the brokenhearted. Engage in the conversation. We must choose to step into the fray and allow our eyes to be open to see and speak to our hearts about the challenges to minorities and others less fortunate in our country. Enter the battle. We must learn to take steps to help our community move forward in a view of advancement of the truth in every heart and home in our country, community and beyond. If majority culture will not engage in an issue in a democratic society, change will not happen. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." The majority of people, whether they are businessmen, teachers, police, retirees, workers, or stay-at-home parents, are good. But there is a small minority that are not, and we continue to let that small minority define us. We are all created in God's image and are equal. It's time to speak and it's time to act.
Thank you. Laurel?
I just want to say that I'm so proud of all of the members of our community who have shown up for the protests these past couple of weekends. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, is the fact that peace and security are not the same thing. Security involves metal detectors and tear gas and rubber bullets, and peace is when we don't need any of those things. And I think I speak for a lot of members of our community when I say that what I want and am working towards is peace. And we can't have peace until we have justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. John?
God, it's just... Rest in power, George Floyd. Black Lives Matter. That's all I can say at this point.
Mayor Dowse.
Last Saturday, people came to downtown Red Wing to express the pain, anger, and frustration brought about by the tragic death of George Floyd. They were here to exercise their First Amendment right to protest peacefully. Protests and vigils continue this week. To all who marched and will march in George Floyd's name, and to the many people joining them in spirit, I want you to know that the city of Red Wing hears you. 2020 has delivered to Red Wing, Minnesota, the United States, and the planet a series of catastrophes and death that I did not imagine possible at the end of last year. In addition, the violent death of George Floyd and the inequitable burden COVID-19 has brought communities of color has, to paraphrase Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, laid bare the socio and economic inequities of the nation. I've heard it said that we are all in this together and that we are all in the same boat. We are all in the same series of storms, certainly, but we are all in different boats, some large, some small, some sturdy, some not so sturdy, some capable of weathering the storm, some not. As elected leaders, we are working with citizens, nonprofits, other elected officials, and business leaders to achieve an equitable economic and a broader societal recovery in Minnesota's cities, towns, and townships. To me, this is not just getting us back to normal, but moving us forward to a more just, equitable, and thriving Minnesota. Governor Walz has charged us to redefine who we are in light of COVID-19. The last week and weeks is further reason to redefine. Let's be ready to imagine another world together. It will take us all to get through these storms. It will take us all to create a vibrant future.